Hi everyone, Chris at the BoundaryWise Academy. Thanks for joining us today and last week for our 2 free training sessions. We had a ton of questions come in. So what we've done is we've taken those, and I'm going to make an attempt here to answer all of them for you so you can get those answers. So here we go. From the first seminar about easements, first question, how can we find out what kind of easements are on a property? Well, first of all, you have to determine if there are easements on the property. You could do that by checking out the legal description like we explained. Now, if you want to know the nature of them, you can actually do the digging yourself if you want and start buying instruments and interpreting them, or you can just come to Protect Your Boundaries and purchase an easement report for that property. It's anywhere from $99 to $150, and you get all the official title documentation, the Parcel Register, the instruments, and we then also interpret it into plain English for you. So that's a really good option for you. Question 2, are easements only on land, or is it possible for an easement to be on a physical building? Oh, absolutely, they can be on buildings. Think of condominiums. Condominiums and commercial properties. Yes, you can have easements over buildings as well as land. Even in residential real estate, you can have easements over portions of buildings and so on in some cases. Next question. Does title insurance provide relief for a negative easement issue? It's too nebulous of a question. The answer is maybe, maybe not. It depends on who's at fault and whether or not the issue that's presented, that's being sued against, is considered under the auspices of title insurance. Okay, next one. You mentioned that it's up to listing agents to disclose easements. Do you know how RECO sees this? Specifically not. I don't know how RECO sees this specifically, but what I do know is they certainly don't teach you anything about this or very much about this. And as such, I think it's probably one of those things that RECO is going to say you need to act professionally and work with the lawyer to come up with the best solution for your client. I don't think they're going to be definitive about whether or not to disclose an easement. I think that's going to be up to brokerage and brand policy. Certainly from our perspective, we say disclose, disclose, disclose. What I will tell you is that RECO will say that if it is considered material, you should disclose it. How do you determine whether an easement is material or not? We would say every easement is considered material because they affect the use of land. Next question. Can an easement in gross or a negative easement be identified on a land survey, or would I need to find this information on the Parcel Register? That's a great question. Most easements will be identified on the survey plan. So an easement in gross, if you've got a hydro easement, you should see it on the survey plan. You're always best off to start with the legal description on the Parcel Register and trace it back that way. If you can have that and a survey plan, fantastic. The other thing to note is that, as we said today in our talk, survey plans, are, especially private surveys, are a snapshot of the land at the moment in time that survey was done. So things might have changed since then. You're always best off when it comes to easements to getting the Parcel Register, checking out to see if there are any easements, digging into the instruments, or just buy the easement report. That's the best way to do it. What about if an easement appears on a survey and it's not in the legal description? Again, it might be an old survey. The easement might have been removed. Things might have changed. Again, you use both documents at the same time. If you suspect that there is a discrepancy and you don't know what to do, call us. That's what we help you with. We're surveyors. We are a land survey firm. We have that expertise. We can help you out. It might cost a little bit of money, but we will be able to get you that definitive answer. What are temporary easements and that allow builders to access development sites? Why are they not always removed from the Parcel Register? Oh, great question. So one of the things we mentioned in the seminar was that even if an easement has been removed, or if it's a temporary easement that has an end date to it, like builder easements, builder access easements, sometimes they stay in the legal description. Just because they're in the legal description doesn't mean they're still active. And that's a frustrating thing for you, I know, and your clients, because you look at a legal description for a property and you go, oh my goodness, there's an easement there. And then you spend all the time and effort and money just to discover that it's actually a time-sensitive easement that ran out 20 years ago. Well, again, great value that you're providing to your client by digging into it and saying to them, hey, you know what, there isn't an easement that's active on this property. Oftentimes, put it this way, an easement is only removed from title if a lawyer actually goes through the process of removing it from the legal description and from title. So the easement might have expired, but if somebody actually hasn't gone in and removed it from the legal description, it'll still stay there. Next question. What is the difference between a restrictive covenant and an easement? In simple words, please. Well, this is not a simple issue. Easements typically are positive. They give somebody the ability to do something that they otherwise couldn't. Most easements are like that we see. But we also talk about how there are negative easements, which prevent somebody from doing somebody. Typically, negative easements and restrictive covenants are very similar in nature. And some of the distinctions between the two are that easements will typically, will often cover portions of a property and either restrict rights or restrict the ability to use portions of the property, whereas restrictive covenants are more about the entire property. Another differentiator is that restrictive covenants cover a lot more, many different behaviors and activities that one can take. Think of a restricted covenant as a contract that is passed on, that is attached to the property, that prevents somebody from doing something with it in the future. What could that be? Here are some examples. In certain neighborhoods, maybe there's some restrictions as to what color paint you can paint your house because they want to maintain a cohesive look to the neighborhood. So there may be a restrictive covenant on that property saying you cannot paint it anything other than this palette of colors. There are restrictive covenants around height of flagpoles, around the kinds of things you can do on properties with that property or while you live in that property. So that's what restrictive covenants. They are agreements that exist. And they do stay on title, but they're different in easements. Easements are usually about footprint of land and so on. It's a gray area on the negative side. So if you see restrictive covenant, if you see easement, dig into them, find out what they're about. And that's it for the easement questions. Now we go on to the survey plan questions that we had today. We had a bunch, and I do apologize. It was spotty. It was jerky. We cut out. I don't know what happened there. We're going to see if we can fix it for next week. But here are some of the questions where please repeat, please repeat. Just go back and watch the video, and you'll get a clean view of everything that was talked about. But we have some great questions as well. Here's one. Please also mention if private plans are not available at Service Ontario, where are they available? Well, they're available at protectyourboundaries.ca. We have the single largest database of private surveys, surveyors' raw property reports, building location surveys, plans of surveys. We have that largest collection. We have about 2 million plans, all findable, searchable by address, and it's a quick credit card transaction. They average around $250, $300, and you download instantly a high-resolution PDF. So that's where you get private plans. But we also have all the public plans as well. It's a one-stop shop for you. Where do you get the private plan? And we just talked about that one. Sorry, same question. Number 3 here. I've seen some realtors relying on Geo Warehouse measurements. Is this advisable? Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, the parcel fabric on Geo Warehouse is the official parcel fabric of Ontario. A better source of information is the subdivision plan or a survey plan. But if you can prove that you got those measurements off Geo Warehouse, then that is a place that you can rely on for those measurements. But please bear in mind that sometimes they are not completely accurate because the way they got into Geo Warehouse is humans transcribing the measurements from the plan of subdivision into a database. So sometimes there's human error in there that isn't checked. Some clients will get a private pin location survey instead of a full private location survey when they hire a surveyor. Thoughts? Okay, let's work with first of all the nomenclature here. Pin location survey doesn't exist. If you're going to get a survey, you get a full survey of a property. We used to do a survey as something called sketches, which would allow us to do portions, but those aren't permitted anymore. We have to do either a full survey, or the other thing we do is a boundary stakeout, where we go out and we do all the research, and what we do is we stake out that boundary, and we can provide you with a survey of just that particular area. So depending on what your issue is and what you need it for, if you're just staking out a fence, you don't need a diagrammatical representation. You just need us to put pins in the ground to show you where that boundary is. If this is a boundary dispute that your client is in, then you may want to go with the diagrammatic representation as well, which is a little more expensive to produce. And in that case, you might as well go with the full survey, because then you're getting a full survey of the entire property and the boundary pinned on the ground as well, with stakes along the ground. Okay, number 5, you have an old plan of survey. The surveyor has retired. Additions have been made. how do you go about getting an up-to-date plan of survey? Wow, fantastic question. So, the least expensive way for you to get a current survey of your property is to find out who did a previous survey of your property, which surveyor did that, call them, and they can usually do a new survey less expensively. And the reason is they already have a file with all the research that needs to be done from the previous time they did that survey. So updating an existing survey is the best way to go. And the way you do that is you phone the number on that particular survey plan that you have. Now, what happens if the surveyor has retired? Typically what happens is when a surveyor retires, another survey firm will purchase that surveyor's records, which means not just the final survey plans, but also all the research that was done. So phone that number and it should get routed to the surveyor who currently owns those plans. If you get confused, call us, we'll help you figure it out. If you're a BoundaryWise graduate, this is the kind of help we help you with all the time. Give us a call and we'll help you out. But typically you just call the number that's on the survey plan and that'll route you through to the company that's now purchased those records and has that research and can help you out. How expensive are line surveys? Okay, let's call them stakeouts. They're not line surveys, they're stakeouts. If we're coming out, for us, for example, to stake out one boundary, you're looking at anywhere from $900 to $1,500, somewhere in there. There's a lot of research that has to go into it before we can do it. We just don't go out and say, it's around here. We have to get that worked out. So that's roughly what that's going to cost. And finally, number 7, please mention that condo and apartment building plans do show building dimensions, units and common areas. Absolutely, yes. So condo plans do show building dimensions because when we're dealing with a condo, your boundaries are typically very close to where your walls are, right? Those are your property boundaries. We're going to go through a condo version later on, but because your boundaries are also embedded in or very similar to the walls, you are going to get those dimensions on there of the units and so on. And then obviously with the condo declarations, you get to look at unit numbers, suite numbers, common elements, percentages, ownerships, and so on in those documents. So I hope this helped, and we'll see you soon. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon on the next training webinar from Protect Your Boundaries and the BoundaryWise Academy. Take care, everyone. Bye.